Welcome to the Transformations ebook. This is a book about change, but it's a book about fundamental change. And it's a different book than you would think because we don't have a series of steps for change nor a little formula for change. We titled the book Transformations on purpose because we are interested in people transforming their lives to high quality experience in everyday life, high quality relationships, high quality in problem solving, every aspect of human experience we seek to give a starting point for. One of the reasons we're looking at starting points is because we want to examine the meaning of our experiences. You might say we're trying to figure out the meaning of the experiences we experience. And that has to do more with our own quality of heart than anything else. The subtitle of the book is Stories of Our Captivity and Our Deliverance. And that's a foreshadowing, frankly, of stories that we're going to unfold and that we'll ultimately ask you to help provide examples of. And in doing that, we're suggesting that we sometimes live our lives in a way that, we see ourselves as captive in situations, as trapped by the circumstances we're in, instead of having a starting point for being delivered from the very troubles that we wish we could escape. Doesn't mean we have control of everything, but it does mean that we always have a starting point. Joseph Smith said that if we start right, it's very difficult to go wrong. But if we start wrong, it's doubly hard to get right. Those are my words, not exactly his, but that's the thought. When we talk about captivity and deliverance, we're talking about the meaning of our beliefs, commitments, and values. And we're talking about how central a moral sense of being human is to understanding the meaning of our experience. One of the things that we want to invite all of you that are looking at this ebook to realize is we're going to talk about everyday life situations. Some of you will think what we're talking about is fairly mundane. But we also talk about extreme situations. And some people ask us, why do you even do this everyday life stuff? Why don't you cut to the chase and get to the things that are really troubling people? Whether it's alcohol abuse or physical violence or discouragement and low self-esteem, why don't you talk about those kinds of things instead of these simple things? And our experience has been,
Let's try that again.
When you try that again, you want me to start right from the beginning again?
Of that part? No, just from that part with the phone.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
All right. But I'm starting this segment again.
Yes.
All right.
This is the end of the first little piece. So make it at this ebook, kind of like you're playing around with that ebook. Okay.
This ebook is a way of inviting people to see and understand what it means to live lives of high quality. And we're going to use a lot of examples and stories from everyday life, as well as stories of more extreme situations. But we don't want you to think that just because we're talking about everyday life that this material, this starting point, that it can't handle the big things. Because we've learned that in human experience, when people get the little things right in everyday life, they're more likely to, number one, avoid a lot of the destructive aspects of life, including addictions like pornography, drug abuse, physical violence, than if they didn't handle the little things. So walk with us through examples that will seem like something you could have experienced last week versus experiences where they're so extreme that you hope you never really have to go through them. But we think we have solutions. You have a starting point for solutions anyway, of many of the circumstances that we will maybe call the psychopathologies of everyday life. Those things in life that don't seem to line up with our hopes, our dreams, those things which seem to confirm certain kind of fears. Well, we're going to walk through all that and show that there are solutions we may not have thought of, precisely because what it means to be human is to be someone who can live in the world in a way without being defeated by the world. So we welcome you to the book. We welcome you to take each chapter at a time when you're going to listen to us, read the material, watch a video, comment on the video, and then see what other comments and questions come to you. We welcome you to the ebook, and we want you to come on this journey. Well, welcome to Chapter 1 in the Transformations ebook. We have a proposal in this chapter that we want you to consider. It's a possibility we want you to entertain. We don't want to insist upon it intensely, but we do want you to ask yourself the question, what does it mean to be human? And consider the answer we are giving, which is, it means that you and I change fundamentally when our hearts change, and we can be either hard-hearted or soft-hearted. And it's that approach to life that contributes to the quality of our experience. And that is more fundamental than the nature of the experience itself, as far as what outside factors and forces are going on. We're interested in simply getting our hearts right. As you read the material, you will find little stories and little examples that are unfolded by other people. And we hope you'll say to yourself things like, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I can see myself in this situation. Because when you see yourself in these situations, they're more likely to be realistic for you. In unfolding the difference between being hard-hearted and soft-hearted, we wonder if what will really unfold for you is a recognition that things could be different tomorrow than they were yesterday, even if you have a similar experience tomorrow than one you had yesterday. Not because the circumstance is different, but because you have changed. And following having read the material that we have for you in Chapter 1, you'll see some people have already made comments or asked questions that we have tried to answer. And we're interested in the comments and questions you have, because every comment you have raises an issue that we ought to address, and every question you have helps us teach not only you, but all the other folks that are going to be reading this ebook. So we're interested in your immersion in this book, bringing your own experience to it, and letting other people learn from what you're doing, and what you're saying and what you're seeing. So now you've read the introduction, and we hope you've seen the questions and comments that other people have already asked, and hopefully you submitted some of your own. But now we're going to introduce you to a series of videos that will address the question of what does it mean to be hard-hearted or soft-hearted, and where do hard-hearted feelings or soft-hearted feelings come from? I mean, we don't wake up one morning and say, today I think I will be hard-hearted. And yet when we go through the day, sometimes we find ourselves burdened. And in these videos that we're going to show you, we want you to see the possibility of people who have been hard giving that up and being able to be soft-hearted in the way they respond to others and the way they meet their circumstances. This first video we've titled Two Worlds, simply to describe the fact that we think the way we experience life when we're hard-hearted as compared to the way we experience life when we're soft-hearted is very distinct. The two qualities of life do not overlap. And so as you unfold or as you see what this video suggests, we want you to ask yourself the question, what do I see in my own experience that relates to the idea that's being presented in this first video? Having experienced that video of the two worlds, do you see that we're proposing that you and I are actually moral agents, that we're agents capable of acting on the environment and not merely being acted upon? And we're hoping that you see the possibility of things, the possibility of your role in creating the quality of your life being realistic. This next video gives you a taste of what it's like to be in a world where the way people relate to you undermine your own hopes and dreams, or maybe even undermine your identity. It's called the flat face. We know you don't quite understand what flat face means right now, but as you watch it, we want you to put yourself in the place of the person who is responding to a flat face. And we'll see what meaning that generates in you once you've watched the video. So here's one thing I'm curious about. After you having watched the flat face video, did you ever find yourself saying to yourself, I've been tempted to respond to other people who are flat-faced with me as if I were flat-faced toward them? When you and I succumb to that temptation, we're now collaborating and undermining the quality of our experience instead of creating the quality of our experience that we claim we long for. You saw there were some other questions and comments already after that video, and if you've got a question or comment, remember you're helping other people and not just yourselves or us by asking a question or making a comment, because it broadens everybody's understanding to see your take on what we're doing. The next video, we titled The Neighbor. It's a clip from the movie To Kill a Mockingbird. Atticus Finch, the attorney, is sitting on a porch of a jail in the middle of the night guarding a black man who's been arrested for a capital crime, and Atticus Finch is his defender. A mob descends upon the scene, and we want you to notice, well, who in this situation is hard and who is soft, and if any kind of change takes place, what change take place? How can you identify it, describe it to convince somebody else that you saw change? And ask this question: how was the change from hard to soft, or soft to hard, how was that possible in this scene? We're interested in you starting to figure out where our movement from hard to soft really comes from. Enjoy the video. So, To Kill a Mockingbird, what did you see in your own experience that relates to what happened? And how did you answer the question, how was it changed from hard to soft possible? If you've got a comment on it, we'd love you to make a comment if you've got a question. If there's something about these clips, by the way, that you say, oh, come on, could that really have happened? We'd be interested in your questions, because if you do not find what we're offering as realistic, it doesn't have any meaning in your everyday life. You won't see it in the way that many people do. The next video is called The Haircut. And it's a mother-daughter situation that many people think is just not solvable. They may be right, but that doesn't mean that the mother in the situation cannot respond in a way that contributes to a quality outcome rather than a disastrous or miserable outcome. Pay attention to the woman and ask yourself this question: what is it about her heart in the way she responds to her daughter that suggests a possibility that things are going to be all right? Please watch The Haircut. So I'm smiling every time I see that video on The Haircut at the mother's response, and I'm wondering, were you able to put yourself in the shoes of the mother when she was confronted by what the little girl had done? And if so, do you want to imagine what the next step is in the relationship there, or what else might be said or done? And if you have a comment on that, please put it in, or if you have a question, let's do that as always. If you've been doing this after every video, you're rolling now with more and more questions, more and more comments, we hope more understanding, and more curiosity about where will this go, what can this ultimately mean about transformations. The next video, clip from the movie A Trip to Bountiful, where a grown daughter and her husband are looking for the runaway mother. For the daughter, it's the mother-in-law. They found her, and it's obvious from the clip that this daughter-in-law, mother-in-law, have had a pattern of behavior that includes resentment and hostility and complaining. It's just a conflicted relationship that seems to be ongoing and never changing. In this reunion of sorts, where the grandmother has been discovered at the old homestead, the daughter-in-law begins to do the same blaming and accusing that is so typical of the exchange between daughter-in-law and mother-in-law. Now, what we're interested in you seeing is how, when somebody changes their behavior, it invites the possibility of change in the other person. No guarantee of change, but it invites a possibility that in this clip opens the door for an understanding that otherwise would never have been seemingly possible. So, the Trip to Bountiful clip should invite the possibility that when people change in a way that surprises us, we weren't expecting it at all, it's an invitation for us to change as well. And that sets the stage for you giving us a comment or a story about when somebody has surprised you in a way you weren't expecting, and for the better, you accepted that invitation, however unintentional it was, and you change yourself. In fact, this next reading, we finished the videos for this chapter, but this next reading from Dallin Oaks, The Desires of Our Hearts, is significant in a very simple...
Let's go back. Okay. So let's pick it up from your phone. I'll pick it up from your phone,
okay, where
you're saying, and now...
All right.
Because you say, when you said the next readings, we want to say that. Okay, so...
So we go from the trip to Bountiful to the next reading.
No, there's not a next reading. To a group of readings.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay. Here we go.
So we go from the video to a reading from Dallin Oaks. Dallin Oaks, The Desires of Our Hearts is the title of the article. And it teaches a fundamental truth that's very simple, and it is this, that our hearts, the quality of our hearts, are the author of our desires. A lot of people try to run around changing desires that they think are unworthy, and that's better than not changing unworthy desires. But what Elder Oaks is saying is we change our hearts first, then the quality of our desires change. Here we are with the second and final reading for chapter 1. The reading is Two Worlds of Communication. In that reading, we're showing the difference between how people communicate when they are hard and how people communicate when they are soft. And we're going to claim that those are symptoms of the heart that come before any kind of communication skills we might have. If we have skills only, imagine what it's like to communicate to somebody when we are hard-hearted. Our skills in communication become weapons. You might have seen that in some of the videos, in the Trip to Bountiful, in the To Kill a Mockingbird clip. But this chapter tries to this reading tries to unfold what it is about communicating that either expresses concern and patience and long-suffering and commitment to the well-being of the other person, or resentment, hostility, feelings of being victimized, and even feelings of revenge when we try to communicate in a hard-hearted way. So once you've read that reading, we would, as always, ask for you to offer a comment or a question, and let's see if we've at least fulfilled the notion of what does it mean to be hard-hearted versus soft-hearted, and how does that have something to do with transformations? That's the message of chapter 1. So you've walked through chapter 1 on the Transformations book, where the goal is, how do I learn or find out or figure out what it means to be transformative in the way I live? We encourage you and can't underemphasize how important it is that you consider submitting a story. We want you to bring your own experience to this book and not just hold it at arm's length, as it were, while you read other people's stories. The stories you submit can be simple and direct, but they are your way of telling us that you see the meaning of what we're talking about in your own experience. Here are two quick examples of very interesting stories. Decades ago, Marion D. Hanks talked about the difference in response by a family to the out-of-wedlock pregnancy discovery in their daughter. One family embraced the girl and said, "Honey, how long have you had to deal with this on your own? How can we help?" Compassion was fundamental. Love and concern was enveloping. The other family, when they heard of the pregnancy of their daughter, said, "Well, I don't know what you're going to do now. I don't even know if you should continue to live here." Well, that's hardening, isn't it? That is. There you go. There's the difference between hard and soft. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in whether or not we are shedding tears of sorrow, godly sorrow, or tears of rejection. That's a simple story. Another, dealing with an addiction. F. Enzio Buscia, in his book Yearning for the Living God, And by the way, I can't remember whether Elder Bush said this directly or if his wife said it, but he was talking about how hard a time he was having giving up smoking. And either he or his wife said, "Oh yes, Elder Bush knows how to give up smoking. He's quit 8 times." Now this is all before he was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it shows not only a struggle but also a commitment to give his best. And once he changed his heart, the desire for cigarettes disappeared. If you have a story or a comment or a question, offer it before you go on to chapter 2. And we're anxious to get there with you because we have a lot to say in chapter 2. Thank you.